This defense sucks.
In 1966, the Chicago Bears drafted the son of a Pennsylvania coal miner in the 4th round. Doug Buffone would go on to play 15 seasons for the Bears and later be named one of the 100 greatest Bears of all time. His allegiance to the Bears never waned, even when he took to the microphone and witnessed some horrendous Bears teams.
The fact is, there's not the fear put into them, because this game is a lot about fear. You either do the job, or you go home and go sell hamburgers at McDonald's.
Doug told it like it is, and that's part of the reason his nephew John has dedicated this show to Doug. And now John Buffone is spreading Buffone-branded beratements just like his uncle.
Win the football game. You're the head coach. I don't care what you have your fingers in. I don't care what you're meddling in. You're the head freaking coach. We get it. You're the most important guy on the staff. You don't have to keep trying to legitimize that.
And he's got pep talks too.
I love this team. And I know everyone watching and listening loves this team. So while we may be pessimistic and cynical, every one of us still has hope that the stars will align at some point. And if that ever does happen, you'll be glad you stuck around.
John is telling it like it is here on Buffone 55. And joining John are Alyssa Barbieri, managing editor of USA Today's NFL Wires, including Bears Wire, and also Danny Shimon, lead game and draft analyst for the Barroom Network. Buckle up and bear down. This is Buffone 55, the John Buffone Show.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Buffone 55, a fast-paced approach at breaking down those lovable Chicago Bears. My name is John Buffone, and with me as always is my trusty producer and co-host Alyssa Barbieri. Alyssa, it's pretty amazing that a team season can actually be over in week 4, but that's how it feels after the Bears got embarrassed by the Chiefs and fall to 0-3. How are you doing?
I feel nothing. I feel empty. I feel hollow. I mean, however we thought last Sunday was going to go, I didn't think it was going to be that bad. I mean, if not for Taylor Swift, how do I get through that game? It was just bad all the way around. How about you, John? I know that you have some thoughts about this as well.
Listen, just when you think that team can't possibly let you down anymore, they go and totally raise the bar to a low standard. There's like, okay, they're probably going to lose. They're outmatched. There's a lot more talent on the other side of the field. Holy crap, are they bad? Oh my God. And it's just like, you can't believe it's almost comical at some point where it's like, this is who I'm cheering for. Oh, good. This is who I'm loyal to. This is the team that I have to watch every week. And like you said, it's like, eventually that, you just gotta shrug your shoulders and be like, yep, just another week, right?
I mean, that was torturous. I mean, the game was over like in 5 minutes. And I was just like, okay. I felt like we were transported like maybe like 10 weeks, like we're in week 10 or something of last season. Again, it's like the same thing, but worse somehow. Oh, and yeah. It just seems like it's never going to end. And John, we have 14 more of these to do. So.
Oh, wow. Thanks for that pep talk. Can't wait for that. All right. Before we try to navigate our way through this disaster, can you give everyone a rundown on how Buffone 55 works this year?
Absolutely. So we're going to begin with our classic B55 segment. That's when I ask John 5 questions about the Bears, and his responses must be completed within 55 seconds. The 55 is John's way of paying tribute to the great Doug Buffone, his uncle, his mentor, and a man who played 15 seasons with the Bears and wore number 55. Then at halftime, we're going to break down the Bears' upcoming opponent. And this week, we're going to take a deep dive on the winless Denver Broncos, one of the few teams that are playing just as poorly as the Bears. We're then going to finish things up with a free-for-all that we call Buffone's Basement, where Danny Shimon joins John and me, and the three of us are going to have a nice Bears therapy session because we need it. So, John, do you think you could bring more energy to this than the Bears did to their games?
Like I said, the bar is set very low, so I think I'm ready.
Okay, so we're going to kick things off with our B55 segment. I'm going to ask John 5 questions, and he's going to somehow keep his responses to 55 seconds. So let's get it started. So, John, Sunday can only be described as embarrassing, with the Bears losing 41-10 to the Kansas City Chiefs, a game where the Bears were outmatched from start to finish, and not even Taylor Swift could keep Fox from switching away from the broadcast. So how was this game handled in the Buffone house? You know the rules. 55 seconds and go.
All right. I'll be honest. I think I'm kind of numb to this. If you want my honest opinion, the Bears did not look like a professional football team. We saw such a gap in talent and execution that it looked like I was watching a JV varsity scrimmage. I don't know how many NFL games Taylor Swift watches, but I can only imagine the song she would write about the Chicago Bears. And as Bears fans, we assumed our team was going to lose on Sunday. But it is never easy to watch your favorite team look like an absolute joke with no direction and nothing positive to take from the game. Anytime a team's starting quarterback is pulled from the game because it's a complete blowout, it's embarrassing. When Fox decided that the fans had had enough and switched the game, that's really embarrassing. And if you watch the rest of the game on Sunday Ticket and subject yourself to that pathetic excuse for a football game because you have to watch your favorite team, that's peak embarrassment, and that's exactly what I did. Fox tried to help me out by taking the game off, but you can't help those who don't want to be helped.
Man, it was brutal because I was in North Carolina for a wedding. It was the day after we were all gathered around watching football, and I subjected these poor people to this game, and they were just like, it was like a funeral procession. They were like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? How you doing?" And I'm like, I'm numb to it at this point. I mean, it quickly got out of control. Like, it wasn't just like, steadily. I mean, like, we all knew that they were going to lose, and I thought 12.5 was very generous spread for the Chiefs. So, I mean, that was just brutal. Like you said, there was nothing good to take from the game except for that it ended eventually. I mean, okay, yeah, they got garbage, takeaways finally. Nothing. And okay, Justin Fields finally threw a touchdown to DJ Moore. Okay, doesn't mean anything at the end of the game. I mean, it's just one of those games where it was humiliating. I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, if I'm not getting paid to watch this game's off at this point. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just bad. And like you said, it's just like this numbing feeling where we're in week 3 at this point. That's just crazy to me.
That's what's crazy.
Do you remember how another time where a season's been over this quickly?
I mean, we had a good idea that last year was going to be a real struggle, but they started 2-1 last year. So at least there was something to talk about as far as positives and, winning games in the monsoon game against the 49ers and, gutting it out and stuff like that. That we don't have we have nothing of that this year. They're worse. Like they built up expectations that this was going to be a step forward, and they look worse. They're on the trajectory to get the number 1 pick again. And so, I mean, to your point, I did have like 2 or 3 people text me and be like, "Hey, how's it going, buddy?" And I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of used to it but we'll keep watching. We're going to watch them every week because unlike the Bears, we, the fans, we show up every Sunday. And so we're going to keep showing up, and we're going to keep watching this just lackluster team. Lackluster is too kind of a word, this team. And we'll take it from there.
They just looked like they didn't belong on the same field as the Chiefs, at all. It was like a JV versus varsity game, and they were way out of their league. It was very brutal to watch.
Agreed.
Okay, so John, the Bears are currently sitting at 0-3. They've shown very little promise throughout the season so far. And as Bears fans let that familiar feeling of hopelessness sink in, what has been your biggest disappointment? And I know there are many through 3 weeks, but give me one. 55 seconds around the clock.
Well, I'm going to be very open, honest throughout this entire show. The biggest disappointment is honestly that I let them do it to me again. I let myself believe that they would be different. How many times do we have to get burnt by this team before we just stop believing in anything they say or they do? I get it. It's September. It's week 4. The season isn't even a quarter of the way over. In my ideal world, they would figure out the offense. They would figure out the defense, and they would go on a tear towards the playoffs. But we have to start living in reality. This team stinks. I hope they prove me wrong. I don't want to be right. I just want to win. But I am disappointed that I allowed this team to fire me up. I'm disappointed that I thought meaningful football was going to be played in Chicago this year. Hell, I'm disappointed I thought they could win some games. I have never seen hopeful turn into hopelessness so quickly. It's September and Bears fans were already looking at mock drafts. We couldn't even get a month of hope before they went and ruined it.
Mock draft. I mean, I did my first article about the Bears draft picks in 2024 after the game, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? It's week 3. I'm like, how did we get here? How did we get to this place? But yeah, to your point, I mean, I think the biggest disappointment for me is just looking at how competitive this team with a worse roster last season was compared to this season when you supposedly upgraded, right? And they've upgraded at a number of positions. They just look lifeless out there. Like the hits principle means nothing. You know, I've seen a lot of people adding an S before it, right? You know, they're completely out. I think Eberflus has already lost the locker room. And I mean, I need someone to be held accountable. And that's something that we haven't had in this organization. But Kevin Warren is there. So we'll see if anything happens, because I do think that things will continue to spiral out of control. But I mean, it's just really disappointing. Like you mentioned before, all the hype building up to this season, you know, after the upgrades, Justin Fields supposedly taking that next step. You know, you've had your second year in the system, you're adding these new playmakers around, upgrading the offensive line. I mean, there's so many different things, and they just come out flat and just not working. Nothing's working, and it doesn't seem like that's going to change anytime soon.
We went from moderately hopeful to absolute hopelessness in 3 weeks. Like, it's incredible what kind of a nosedive that was for the Bears and Bears fans. It's not like, once again, we weren't predicting this team to win the Super Bowl or win the division before I mean, go back. I said, you know, 9-8 was topping out. You had it at 8-9. And, you know, I thought that was like, wow, they could really get above 500 this year. And now it's like, it's so silly to say that. It sounds so incredibly stupid to say that, but like, is it that wrong for a fan to want their team to be just a game above 500? Like, are my expectations too high? Am I asking for too much? And so it's like, you look at what it was just 3 or 4 weeks ago to where we are now, and I cannot believe the expectations just dropped like that. The Bears' expectations were like Enron, straight down, worth nothing. It bottomed out real quick.
Do you remember that first, the preview episode we had going into week 1, how optimistic we were? Yeah. And like, I felt like I had to be, because I knew that I don't know, because things just always tend to go bad for the Bears. So I'm like, let me be optimistic for like 1 week. And then now I'm just like, what happened? That feels like 2 years ago or something. It's just crazy.
We were young and stupid.
Always. We're Bears fans.
3 weeks ago. It was a different time.
It really was, truly. So, John, you just mentioned mock drafts. So let's play a game of hindsight. Many fans and analysts are second-guessing the Bears' decision to trade the number 1 overall pick last spring when they could have drafted another quarterback. With all of the information we now know, what are your thoughts? 55 seconds? Go.
No, I'm not really on board with that notion. Listen, I'm not exactly in love with the job Ryan Poles has done so far, but whether he meant to do it or not, he actually set the Bears up pretty nicely next offseason. And I know we've heard that before, but hear me out. You already had Justin Fields, so you give him another shot in this system in 2023, and if he pans out, great. You don't have to use your 2024 pick on a quarterback. You can address the D-line or edge rusher or offensive line, but if you come to the decision that Justin Fields is not your guy, you still have 2 first-round picks in 2024, one of which is your own, which we assume will be pretty high, and you also have Carolina's pick. The Panthers are currently 0-3 as well. So you'll have great draft capital with a much deeper quarterback class in 2024 than there was in 2023, and maybe you can get a team to give you a mid-round pick for Justin Fields if you are, in fact, ready to move off of him. But it's week 4. Fields still has most of the season to prove himself, so this conversation still is a while off.
I'm trying to hold off before I do my first mock draft. Like, I don't know, maybe we like after that primetime game or something. But no, like you mentioned, I mean, looking at what Ryan Poles did, he made the right decision trading the number 1 pick. Like you said, you get an asset in DJ Moore. You set yourself up for next year, because it looks like after this week, the Bears could be poised for the top 2 draft picks in the next draft. Obviously, we still have plenty. We're going to have 14 or 13 games after that or whatnot. So there's some time. But I think also, like you mentioned about Justin Fields, you know, you're giving him an opportunity to prove that he's the franchise quarterback this season. And if not, it's perfect because you can move on. You're going to have 2 first-round draft picks. Go and get your quarterback then, right, if he doesn't work out. So I think that you could always look back in hindsight as we're doing in this activity and kind of look at some of the, you know, the guys that he maybe passed over, like, you know, Jalen Carter's kind of like tearing it up right now and people are questioning that, but they did need an offensive tackle. My goodness, can you imagine what this offensive line would look like without Darnell Wright with all of the injuries and everything? So, I mean, I do think that Poles, yeah, right. Yeah, I think Poles made the right call here. And I think, it is setting the Bears up nicely for the future. Again, that's assuming that everyone is still here in terms of the front office, the coaching staff. Yeah. So we shall see.
And that's another good point. Like if they would have drafted, you know, Bryce Young and they're struggling like they are this year, and they fire the coach, all of a sudden you have a rinse repeat of what you've been doing for the last 2 regimes where Nagy didn't draft Trubisky, Eberflus and his staff didn't draft Fields. And so if you would have drafted a quarterback high this year and all of a sudden Eberflus is out of the job, then once again, you're saddling up your new coach with a quarterback they didn't draft. So as much as things are not working out, I think that they still did the right thing.
Absolutely. And we'll see how that pans out. So, John, a new debate has sparked between Bears fans, and it's one of futility. Is this the worst Bears regime in history? While it might not be fair to judge its regime less than 2 years in, what is your take on how they stack up against others that have disappointed Bears fans? You've got 55 seconds.
Isn't it great to be a fan of a franchise where you have to argue over who did their jobs the worst? It would be awesome to debate over who the best regime was or who brought the most success to Chicago. Instead, we have a deep pool of candidates for worst ever. This is not a debate I want to be part of. I don't want to relive conversations about Mark Trestman and Phil Emery. I don't want to dissect Ryan Pace's draft picks or his free agent signings or talk about John Fox's indifference or Matt Nagy's word soup. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's hard to call a regime the worst if they did a complete teardown in year 1. However, they have set the franchise record for consecutive losses, and they're giving up an absurd amount of points, and there is not one strength to this team. At least Trestman had a fun offense for a while, but once again, I don't care. I'm not going to dig my heels in and plant my flag for who I think screwed the Bears up the most. This sucks. I don't want to talk about everyone that screwed up, but this is literally all they are giving us to talk about. We can't talk about the games, and we sure as hell can't talk about the playoffs, so we get mock drafts and conversations about who was the most incompetent.
Haven't we been here before? We're here every year. That is like the theme of our show yearly. And it's so frustrating, like you said. I mean, it's just wash, rinse, repeat. And I mean, like you said, I really don't want to rehash what's already happened because I already went through it once and that was enough. But it's been bad. And this really felt, that's the thing. It really felt like, you know, the Bears are maybe turning the corner here with this. Like it felt like but again, that's how it always starts with us, right? Like when they first hire them, you have that hope, that optimism. You're like, okay, maybe they'll be different, right? Maybe these will be the guys that'll turn things around. And now we find ourselves, like you said, a franchise worst losing streak at 13 games. It has been almost a full calendar year since they've won a football game. It's insane. And Matt Eberflus already has the worst winning percentage among all Bears head coaches. It's just, it's so bad. Look at you look at all the numbers and it's just like, it's so bad and it's so frustrating. And I just want a good football team. I want a good football team. I know you do too.
I just want to see the arrow pointing up for once.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep seeing this team sink and sink and sink and sink. And keep telling we're almost there. We got to put it together. We got to put it together. We got to go back to fundamentals. We're almost there. This is a professional football team. It's your job to be there already. You're not supposed to and once again, this is a conversation we had with the old regime. You don't need to be finding your identity in week 6, 7, and 8. You don't need to go out and find the whys of why this is happening halfway through and 3/4 of the way through. Like this is stuff that you're supposed to take care of before the season. You're not supposed to figure out who you are halfway through whenever you have a terrible record. What good team does that? So it's literally the same conversations over and over and over again.
We're stuck in an endless loop. It is never going to end.
You're right.
We're going. It's just so bad. It's so. So depressing. Sorry to bring everyone down. Okay.
What are we supposed to say?
I know.
I'm not going to just say positive crap if there's not anything to be positive about.
There is nothing, and it just, again, it feels like nothing good is coming up. It feels like even against a Broncos team that lost by 50 points, it still feels like the Bears are going to go out there and get their asses kicked, or so. Like, it just feels
right.
like the same old thing. Okay, so we're going to end on this. It's still really early in the season, even though it doesn't feel like it. But it does feel like 2023 is over as quickly as it started in 3 weeks. So, John, you always try to tell Bears fans why they should still care. So is there anything, and I'm begging you, is there anything uplifting that you can say? No clock. Good luck with this one.
Alyssa, I have thought about this for quite some time, and I got nothing. This team, this franchise has killed my spirit. I used to get furious when they'd lose, and as time progressed, I would get pretty mad, and that faded into being mildly irritated. And now, the worst thing that can happen is beginning to happen. I'm becoming callous to it all. The Chicago Bears have put out my fire, and honestly, I've relit it too many times. What do we have to be excited about? We have a defensive-minded head coach that can't coach defense. We have an offense that looks like it would struggle in a Pop Warner league, and a bunch of empty promises about how year 2 of the rebuild was going to show real promise. Instead, we see 13 straight losses, and in those 13 straight losses, the Bears have given up 25-plus points every single time. It's insane to think that they haven't even lucked into a win or somehow kept the team to under 25 points in that stretch. Going into this week, they are home underdogs to a team that is winless and just lost their last game by 50 points. How is that for perspective? The Chicago Bears are supposed to be built on physicality, on meanness, on overpowering their opponents. And to be honest, I see an uninspired team that is not being motivated. So I'll continue to watch the game because fans will always answer the call. I love this team, and I'll be loyal to this team until the day they put me in the ground. But when a franchise keeps showing you who they are, eventually, you have to believe it. That'll do it for B55. After this message, we'll preview the Denver Broncos and talk with Denny Shimon, the Barroom's lead analyst.
The fall is where we rock here at the Barroom Network with over 15 shows scheduled from September to January. Make sure you subscribe to the Barroom Network's YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Buffone 55. This week, the Bears take on a Broncos team that could be even worse than Chicago. Aldo Gandia previews a team that allowed 70 points last Sunday and whose season appears to be crumbling apart in embarrassing fashion.
Well, right now, what would be emotions like going through your head personally?
Shit. Shit.
A-Chain, big hole. Turns it on, accelerating, 69 points. Fake to Mostert, 1st and 10. Here they go with Hill. Turner Young got him, but they couldn't bring him down. He saw elusive. A-Chain, spinning, Mostert, block, in there, touchdown. NFL game until today. Fake to Mostert, end around on 1st and 10, and this is A-Chain breaking tackles. Back. Rush moves up well. Crossing pattern right here. Sutton gets by Holland, punched away. He fumbles again. Miami has got it.
That was embarrassing.
That was a tough one today.
There weren't a lot of positives to take from that game.
Tired of losing, man.
This is as bad as it's ever been, so.
We definitely got a butt handed to us today, and, it's just frustrating, The game kind of got away from us.
I'm at a loss for words.
Came in with a plan, we didn't execute nothing we put in place, nothing.
Been here for 7 years, and all I've done is lost.
the most embarrassing game I've ever been a part of. It's the most embarrassing game I've ever watched. So.
When you play good teams and you don't execute, that's what happened. They hang 70 on you.
We just got to regroup and look at the film and just get better.
And what we have to do is we have to be focused on what's ahead of us, and that's trying to get ready to go play the Chicago Bears on the road.
Fortunately for Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos, they'll face a Bears team whose season is also crumbling apart. For Wilson, it appears his relationship with his head coach is frayed. The veteran quarterback has played fairly well this season, notching over 300 yards passing in his last 2 games and recording 6 touchdowns this season. But Sean Payton has publicly called out his quarterback multiple times.
Russ has got to be sharper with getting the play out, and then we got to look at how much we have in.
The offense as a whole is averaging 23 points per game. That's 15th in the league and 7 points more than the Bears. The Broncos' offensive line actually played better in pass protection against the Dolphins than they have the first 2 weeks of the season. They gave up 1 sack against the Dolphins and now have allowed 10 this year. The team's rushing attack is healthy. Wilson is second in rushing yards, and the rest of the team has 4 yards per carry average, although they've scored only 1 touchdown.
And a block by Manhurts and hit as he throws and caught! What a grab! Mims, the rookie!
We felt when we drafted him, he had real good deep ball skill set. He can run.
Rookie and Danny Shimon favorite Marvin Mims leads the Broncos with 195 yards receiving, while Courtland Sutton has the most receptions, 17. Jerry Jeudy is getting started to find his rhythm. The 2020 first-rounder caught 5 passes last week for 81 yards, including this 46-yarder.
Deep, and he's got him! Caught by Jeudy, 15-yard line, hit by Jones.
Adam Troutman leads all tight ends with 5 receptions, no touchdowns, and he's moved the chains once. Greg Dulcich has caught 2 passes. Both of them have moved the chains. None of the 4 tight ends on the roster has caught a touchdown pass this season.
10, the fake, good block in there, and down it goes, caught at the 30. This is the dynamic Hill. He's in for 6.
The bigger problem for Denver is that there's something missing with their defense, and it's tackling. In week 1, they had 8 missed tackles. A week later, 11. Against the Dolphins, 24.
That's something that obviously needs to be emphasized, and that comes from coaching, that comes from leadership, that comes from all across the board. It's the standard that you want to hold yourself to as a player.
Another problem is the defense's lack of turnovers. They have only 1 so far this season. That's led to the team allowing 105 points in their last 2 games. What the Bears can learn from looking at the Broncos' defensive tape is that they are susceptible to allowing a lot of rushing yards when facing misdirection and motion. Against the Dolphins, they gave up 350 yards on the ground. The Broncos' pass rush recorded 4 sacks in their Week 2 loss to the Washington Commanders and came up with Jack against the Dolphins. The Broncos do have the best return game in the NFL. They are first in punt return average and first in kickoff return average. Field goal kicker Will Lutz has made 5 of 6 field goal attempts, his longest only 32 yards. He's also 6 for 7 in extra point attempts. Despite losing by 50 points last week, Vegas still has the Broncos as favorites to beat the Bears at Soldier Field this week. If the Bears lose, you can bet there's going to be some significant changes to the team somehow, some way in the next week or 2. Aldo Gandia for Buffone 55.
So a team that has given up 105 points in the last 2 weeks is favored against the Chicago Bears. I'm sorry.
It makes sense.
It's comical. It's actually comical. I have to laugh. But all right, then we got a little bit of hope there. So let's go ahead and bring on the Barroom's lead analyst, Danny Shimon, to the program. Danny, hey, how you doing, buddy? How are you feeling after last week?
John, they broke me, John. They broke me after that game. I was on that post-game show with Coach T and Aldo, and I said I'm broken. I had nothing positive to say after that one. It was just, and it's funny because I even called it. I'm right. I told you guys last week, I'm like, it could be a 50 burger, it could be Nagy trying to rub it into the Bears. And they actually, I think Andy Reid pulled the starters like midway through that early third quarter portion. And if it wasn't for that, I think they would have easily maybe topped what the Dolphins did to the Broncos against this defense.
They did show mercy. And so, but we do have to be subjected to another Bears game this weekend. I did want to, Robbie said Canelo on Saturday, John, which is true. I'm happy. I'm excited for a boxing match on Saturday. At least I can watch some kind of good sporting event before I gotta watch the Bears the next day at 1 p.m. Eastern, noon in the Central Time Zone. But yeah, looking forward to that. It's going to be a pretty good fight between him and Charlo. But anyway, I guess we're talking about football. We gotta do that. Danny, your belief in Justin Fields has not wavered despite some growing speculation by the media and demands by the fans that a change might be necessary at quarterback. Can you share with us what you're seeing from Fields that makes you believe that he's capable of still being a good NFL quarterback?
John, it's just hard for me to believe that a kid that talented, with that dynamic, with the ball in his hands, that kid I've scouted since in high school and college and here in the pros, that just lost it. That just can't complete a pass down the football field. It won't get through my head. I might have a hard head, so maybe that's what it is. But it's the fact that 4 weeks ago, people were touting this kid as a potential superstar and a potential MVP candidate, and then 3 weeks now he sucks. You get him out of here, trade him, cut him, whatever you want to do. It just doesn't work that way. And he gives you that dynamic ability in terms of with his legs. We've already covered that, but he also has the ability to make plays with his arm. And I'm going to say something here, guys, that you guys probably won't believe. You might laugh at me. People in the chat are probably going to go crazy when I say this, but I watched that KC game, the All-22, the first half. I couldn't do the second half. I don't have the stomach for that. But I watched the first half, and believe it or not, even the stats don't bear it, but I saw some positives from Justin in terms of what he does or his pocket presence and him actually maneuvering in the pocket. What I mean by that is the first play, for example, the rush right away, they're backed up. Their rush comes right into his face, and there was a couple of slant routes to his left. There was some congestion there, so he decided to kind of run away from the pressure. Goes out to his right, and it's a nice 11-yard strike to Chase Claypool on that right sideline on the run, accurate throw. All right, I'm like that's a good sign. There's another play later on in the drive. I believe that's our first drive where again he drops back and the pressure is in his face. I looked at the all 22s. No one was open downfield. The only person open was a check down to Khalil Herbert on the flats there. But there was a defender bearing down on him. A flat defender was going to come down and tackle him if he makes the catch, and so on and so forth. So Justin decided to go ahead and take the ball, run up the middle, and that's when he got 17 yards and a first down. So that's when I saw him kind of get back to what he was doing last year. The other plays later on in the second quarter, I saw a play where again he went through a progression. He went through a first read, second read, third read, fifth read, and finally decided to go and tuck the ball and run away with it. So I saw some things that are positive. Obviously, we saw those two throws, the one to DJ Moore down the sideline, where it was a perfect throw. There was a defender barreling down on him in the pocket. Isn't even able to complete his actual follow through in his motion, but was able to throw what I call a bucket throw. Drops it into the bucket right into DJ Moore's arms, and he drops the ball. That's a 50-yard plus yard completion there. That's a big play that's gone right there from that drop. There was the other play to Chase Claypool. He does a good job in the pocket. Again, drops back. You see it from the all-22 end zone copy. Drops back, sees that the safety has left the middle of the field, has Claypool one-on-one on the sidelines, and he says, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give him a shot. Throws the ball up there, 50-50 jump ball. Claypool should have gone up there and come down with that football. He doesn't. So there's another big play potential there. But again, it was a proper read. Even on the interception, guys, where you see him drop back, especially on the end zone copy, you see him look at Cole Kmet, runs a little stop route right there. He's drawing the safety, Justin Reed, to Kmet. And then you see Claypool coming out around him on an inside dig route, and that's his target. So he tries to hit him in that window there. Justin Reed does a great job of just kind of taking 2 steps towards Kmet, and then 1 step back, jumps up, makes a great play, tips the ball's tipped, and interception. Now, if you want to criticize him for that, maybe you can say maybe take a little off of that throw and kind of feather it into Chase Claypool for that second level throw. But there's some positive signs here. Again, the stats don't bear it. the scoreboard doesn't bear it. But I mean, it was 21-0, 20-0 before a blink of an eye. And now all of a sudden, the run game is abandoned, and it's all basically on Justin trying and make things happen. And I didn't see, more importantly, I didn't see plays where I saw it in Tampa and against the Packers where there was wide open receivers running down the football field, and he's looking at them, not pulling the trigger. I didn't see any of those. Again, I did the first half, didn't do the second half of the all 22s, but I didn't see any of those evidence. So that kills me. Maybe just there's something going on there. There was also a nice throw where he anticipated on a 7 route, a corner route to DJ Moore. He threw it where DJ Moore was supposed to be, but the defender got in Moore's way. And it looked like Moore kind of eased up a little bit, slowed down a little bit, and that ball felt incomplete as well. That was early on in the first quarter. So, there are times where you saw him kind of maneuvering from the pocket, making some decisions, reading the defense. Unfortunately, the Chiefs played a terrific game in terms of defensively, and offensively, there was just no receivers streaking wide open like we had seen in previous games. So that gives me some hope.
Well, let me ask you this, Danny. Obviously, it's not generating any points on the scoreboard, and the stats are not going back. So, I mean, some of that has to fall back on the scheme and the coaching, then, right? So, what is going on with the scheme? What's going on with Luke Getsy, and why is this not a marriage that seems to be working between him and Justin Fields right now?
Well, what I'm seeing, again, I don't know if this is just my guess, my opinion. I don't know if this is coming down from Ryan Poles, this is coming down from Matt Eberflus, but it looks like Luke Getsy's been told we want to run an offense where Justin is a pocket quarterback, and they're running these long routes. These routes, 15 yards on the field. You got 9 routes. You got goal routes. We got guys going down the field, and that takes time. You see Justin going back 7, 8-step dropbacks, and that takes time for those routes to develop, and the protection hasn't developed there. And there's times where he's going through these reads because they want him to stay in his pocket, where he just doesn't, by the time he comes back to a read that he was already passed, it's already too late. He's either gotten sacked or he's missed the opening of the window. It just looks like he's got a lot going on in his mind. It feels like they're not running an offense that's tailor-made to his strengths. What are his strengths? Getting him on the run, getting him free to run and use his legs, and also quick hitting plays. Coach T and I touched on that in the pregame and the postgame show. Give him some slants, give him some quick hitters. Some quick out routes. Get some jet sweeps, some bubble screens. Every time you see Justin going in a 3-step drop, 1, 2, 3, bam, the ball's out. The ball's in the hands of a receiver, and then the guys are moving down the football field. So that's what I think they got to do: some quick game, get the ball out of his hands, build some confidence as he goes out there the game. Again, allow him to use his legs and become that threat he was. Now, defenses are actually game planning against them. If you looked at the Chiefs tape, again, they had a spy in the middle of the defensive line, or the linebacker or safety. You're always spying on Justin in the middle, and then the defensive ends. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. The defensive ends are not coming up the field when they pass rush. They're coming diagonally straight at Justin, trying to kind of hover him in from the sides. You got the spy in the middle there. So they're boxing him in, and they're trying to make him that pocket, keep him in that pocket and keep him contained. So, the way they're playing him defensively, the way offensive that they're calling these plays, these long routes down the football field, it's just, and then again, guys, it's not just Justin. I see offensive linemen confused. I see they don't know who their assignments are, who their blockers are. Receivers aren't running full sprint off the line of scrimmage. It just looks like they're just all kind of thinking out there, and all 11 guys are not cohesive. And if that's not a cohesive unit, it's going to look clunky and it's going to look bad. And that's what we've seen so far.
You mentioned the offensive line, and Alyssa, I want to kick it over to you because the Bears' offensive line went through its 12th starting lineup in the Poles Eberflus era and 25th different combination in those 20 games, and more changes apparently are coming. What's the latest out of Hallis Hall on the offensive line, and who are they getting back, or who's going to be? What's the shuffle looking like now?
Yeah, well, there's good news. After this week, Tevin Jenkins is going to be eligible to return from injured reserve just in time for that Thursday night game against the Commanders. It's uncertain, obviously, whether he is healthy enough to return at that point, but, he is eligible to return, and that would just be huge for this offensive line, getting back their top guy. And then also, the hope is right guard Nate Davis will be able to suit up on Sunday. He was active for the game on Sunday against the Chiefs, but as Adam Schefter reported, he was just available in like a backup capacity. And I think after watching, Ja'Tyre Carter there in his place, we want Nate Davis back. And that would be another big addition for the Bears, considering that Braxton Jones is already on IR. I mean, they have 1, 2, 3 current starting offensive linemen out, and it's just a mess. So hopefully getting some guys back in the next couple of weeks will hopefully, help Justin Fields out a little bit. Also, Cody Whitehair, who, as we know, moved to left guard once Tevin Jenkins was placed on IR. He continued to struggle, but according to Pro Football Focus, Lucas Patrick at center and right guard Ja'Tyre Carter did grade lower than him. Patrick graded a 53.4 and Carter had 46.2, while Whitehair was at 55. Darnell Wright did have the highest grade, though. And when you look kind of more in depth from that last game against the Chiefs, Darnell Wright allowed 3 pressures and 1 sack, according to PFF. Lucas Patrick, Ja'Tyre Carter, each allowed 1 pressure. Larry Borum in there at left tackle allowed 1 pressure and 1 hit. And Cody Whitehair had a clean sheet, so good for him. It is hard to find anything positive about this offensive line right now. But the good news for the Bears is the Broncos have only managed 4 sacks this season. So here's to Justin Fields staying upright and having some time to throw the ball and hopefully hit some receivers downfield.
Before we move over to the defense, I have a quick question for both of you. We're going to talk about overall hot seats later in the show, but a lot of people online and in chat rooms are saying Luke Getsy needs to go now. He needs to be fired now. Logistically, I think that's difficult because you can't just bring in a new coordinator with a new scheme halfway through. And who are you going to promote who's called plays or lack thereof experience? Do either of you, and Danny, I'll go to you and real quick, and then Alyssa chime in, think there's any possibility that Luke Getsy is relieved of his duty before the end of the season?
No, I don't think so. And then that's a point that you just brought up right now. We've talked about it before. Who would you go to? Andrew Junoku? He's never called plays, to my knowledge, in his life. So he's a quarterback's coach. You're not going to go to Tyke Tolbert, who's the receivers coach, who also never has called plays before. So some might say, it can't be any worse if you bring it, but it's different, guys. It's different if you never call plays to be able to just kind of throw it on the fly there. Just throw someone in there to call plays. It's not going to be easy. So I think Getsy is here for the long run. I think the entire staff is here for the entire season. So, and then hopefully after the season, they're all going to be, wiped out. But I don't think there's going to be any sort of in-season changes.
Alyssa, any in-season changes?
Yeah, no, I agree with Danny. For everything you guys both said, it's who do you go to at this point? I think the best hope that we have going for us is after that primetime game against the Commanders, like last season, you take that mini bye week and you sit down and you do what you did last season, even though, I feel like you have a good idea from last year, but you sit down, you kind of go over, what worked, what didn't, and you refocus. I know that's Matt Eberflus's favorite term at this point, but I think that might be the best point. Just, sit down and really give a true evaluation, take some accountability on all sides, whatever's going on behind the scenes, just find a solution, find something that works, cater that scheme to the players and not the other way around.
I was excited that I was going to that Thursday night game in Washington before the beginning of the season. And now I'm like, I have to go to this game.
Right.
Now I got to go to this on a Thursday night.
I'm
in
so
DC.
sorry.
It's going to be cold. Or all of that positive energy that I had when I bought the tickets is now it's like, crap. Now I have to go to this. It's like, who's going to buy them off me? Nobody. So now I guess I got to go. But all right, let's switch gears to defense because that's much more uplifting. There's a positive note. The defense. Danny, when we're talking about this defense, we're looking for someone to be a bright spot, and someone who we thought was going to be a bright spot from the get-go was Tremaine Edmonds, who was signed for $72 million. What are you seeing out of the linebackers so far this year, specifically middle linebacker?
Well, in terms of Tremaine Edmonds, he's a guy that has had no impact right now on this defense. And in fairness to him, linebackers can only do so much once a defensive line in front of him can't do anything at all to help him out, right? So, in terms of numbers, in 3 games he's got 31 tackles, 19 solo, but he hasn't really done anything in terms of effect. The effect that supposedly Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus had told us he was going to do is going to give us, a positive impact in coverage, and also because of his length and speed to be able to be, a sideline playmaker. He hasn't done that, and then that's another thing where I'll bring this up later on where we talk about people on the hot seat, but he was Roquan Smith was ushered out, and this guy was brought in because supposedly he was going to make a difference. And you know what? From what I've seen, Roquan Smith is a difference maker, and so far Tremaine Edmonds is not.
Well, Thanks for that, Danny. Let's look at this holistically, Alyssa. I'm trying to figure out why this unit is so bad. I mean, there were injuries. There is obviously people not playing up to potential. You posted some scary stats on bearswire.com. Can you take us through some of those stats you posted and what kind of stands out to you?
Yeah, definitely. I think Aldo's going to pull those up for us to take a look at.
Maybe. He's probably scrambling right now. So this is what we call filling dead air. So if you're on if you're ever hosting a radio show and you're supposed to go to
it's not loading.
Right, sure, yeah. So if you've ever hosted a radio show and you're expecting something to come up like a soundbite and no one is coming up, you're like, okay, so let's just expand. Let's extend what we're talking about. Let's read the newspaper. What are the headlines today? That weather out there is just crazy. It was like 65 degrees today as we're still waiting. But anyway, there are going to be some statistics here that I assume that are just quite startling if you're watching this Bears team. But while those stats are getting up, seriously, Alyssa, when you look at this defense and what we thought we were going to get, where we thought the linebacking core was going to be a strength, we thought the secondary was going to be a big strength. We just need to get something out of the front four, and we're not getting anything from any of those levels. So when you look over this team, is like, what is your biggest disappointment on the defensive side of the ball?
Easily the defensive line. I mean, they're the only unit that is healthy at this point, and you look at the money too that Poles has invested in Yannick Ngakoue and DeMarcus Walker. And I forgot that Walker was on the team till they mentioned his name in the game against the Chiefs. So, I mean, it's just really disappointing. 1 sack, which obviously is going to rank dead last. That should be in the stats whenever Aldo finds those. It's really disappointing because, that was one of the biggest weaknesses last season. And it was something that Poles knew he had to address. And he addressed it, but there are still concerns. And they're not helping out the secondary who are, I mean, at one point they were down all their starters in this game against the Chiefs. I mean, they already have their hands full, but you're not making it any easier. It's just, there's a lot to kind of blame to go around. But yeah, the defensive line has just been the biggest disappointment for me, especially when you have the investment, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's been brutal. So, I mean, I guess the run defense is a little bit better, but I mean, that doesn't really help when the entire defense is that bad. But I mean, it's been disappointing. It's more of the same, somehow worse than last year. They, by and away, if the Broncos hadn't given up 70 points last week, they would be the worst defense in the league. But somehow Denver's trying to give us a little hope for this game, which is weird.
And those who are tuning into the video portion, you'll see those graphics now.
There we go.
31st in points allowed, 30th in passing defense, 20th in rushing defense, 29th in total defense, 32nd in third down conversions, red zone defense. Oh, they're 29th. Sacks, they are 32nd. Takeaways, 22nd. That's actually their best ranking out of all of that. What out of those stats, Alyssa, kind of just hurts you the most when you look at? Because they're all damning, but when you look at those stats, which one kind of pops up like, oh, come on?
Yeah, it has to be the third down conversions a lot. I mean, they just can't. That's the most frustrating thing watching this team, whether it was this season or last season, is when there are opportunities to be made to get off the field, to give your offense for a momentum shift. The defense is just not able to get off the field, and they're allowing teams to convert on third down 60% of the time, which is just inexcusable, and you're not going to win football games like that. And when you look at it too, the red zone defense is pretty bad as well. They're allowing touchdowns on 75% of the time. I mean, it's just bad. And some of these really important categories, it's more of the same, right? Kind of going back to what I was talking about before. It's just, nothing has changed when, that was supposed to be a focal point this offseason. Poles made some moves. Those moves haven't panned out at this point. And it just continues to be more of the same. It's a continuation. As a losing streak continues to mount, as the losses continue to mount, this defense just continues to get worse and worse. And it's some of the same areas of concern, as well as being dead last in sacks. They had those 2 takeaways in garbage time with the backups in. So, I mean, hey, at least they're not dead last in something.
Well, speaking of dead last, that's probably what the ratings are going to be for this Broncos-Bears game. But let's look over this is a question for both of you, because based on some of the records and some of the games up there are some real clunkers, and Aldo was nice enough to identify 4 of those potential clunkers. And we start with the Broncos and the Bears, which we were just talking about, and then the Vikings, who were winless, at the winless Panthers, the 1-2 Bengals at the 1-2 Titans, and then the 1-2 Raiders at the 1-2 Chargers. Which one of those do you think is the absolute worst? And I don't know if this is considered me being a homer, but it's got to be the Bears. The Bears game is going to be the worst if you ask me. Those are 2 terrible teams. They're going to be playing for absolutely nothing. The Vikings at least have an interesting offense, and the Panthers have a shiny new quarterback they drafted number 1 overall. The Bengals have Burrow, so you can watch him. The Chargers are interesting because of Herbert and Eckler and some of the guys they have on defense. To me, I find nothing. If I weren't a Bears fan, I'd find absolutely nothing interesting about the Broncos at the Bears. But am I wrong?
I mean, if I wasn't a fan of the Bears, and let's picture, I'm a fan of a team that has had, is 3-0 or 2-1. They have a winning record, which is, I'm not used to that. And I'm looking at games to watch, especially in the early slate. If I have to watch one of these, I'm not going to lie, I'm probably going to pick Bears Broncos because they're both so bad. It's like watching a car crash. You just want to see what's going to happen. How bad is this going to be? Like how many points are they going to score? It's going to be an ugly game. But like when you have a winning team, you're like, okay, yeah, you can sit there, point, and laugh at other teams. And that must be fun because we have to watch this and we are not going to feel that way. But yeah, I feel like there will be people tuning into that game just to see how bad it truly is.
Danny, I think this matchup with the Broncos, they always say it's the the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. Well, this is the completely stoppable force versus the completely movable object. So what if you let's reverse it around. What game would you, if you weren't a Bears fan, which one of these games would you watch?
All the games that I would watch probably would be, let's see, probably that Bengals Titans game. I mean, Bengals obviously with the talent with Joe Burrow, and then obviously Tennessee, it's got to come back and bounce back. They're going to be at home, so I think that should be a more competitive game. But yeah, I mean this game right now. I mean, the Broncos are looking at the Bears as, all right, we're gonna come out here. We're gonna put up our own fireworks here, and we're going to score 30, 40 points on this defense that can't even stop a runny nose. So I mean the Broncos are licking their chops, guys, and then they got talent. They got a good play caller in Sean Payton. They got Russell Wilson at quarterback, who's playing better than he was last year under Hackett, and got some talent at receiver. That video that Aldo just put up earlier with Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, and the guy that I really loved coming out of the draft out of Oklahoma was Marvin Mims Jr. And, they got some big play potential. So Javonte Williams is a running back that's a bruiser that's going to be able to, muscle his way through arm tackles. So, this is not, that's why they're favored. That's why they came in here favored after what happened to them last week. Their defense is what's been struggling. And we saw the missed tackles. They had some untimely turnovers that cost them to put the defense in bad situations. But they're coming in here against a Bears team that, quite honestly, I don't see how they could beat these Broncos. And I know they came off a 50-point loss, but if you can't stop anybody, there's no way you're going to win in the NFL. And even if Fields and company put up, say, 22 points or 25 points, Broncos will score 30. They'll score 35. I don't see how this team. We talked about the third down conversion rate. I mean, that's just embarrassing. And then the turnovers. We had 0 coming into it last week. We got 2 in garbage time, and the 1 sack that we had, and that was a coverage sack in week 1 versus Jordan Love that Ngakoue got. So I mean, this is one of the worst. Imagine if we only had a defensive-minded head coach that can help fix this defense for us.
That would be nice.
If
a guy that had a defensive background and was hired because of his defensive prowess and ability to run a defense, maybe the defense wouldn't be. Oh wait, never mind.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think they did try to do that.
Everywhere you look at, they can't rush the quarterback. They can't stop the run. They can't get off the field on third downs. I mean, there's nothing they can really do. And I just don't know what, in terms of positivity, what I can give you on this defense. They have 2 safeties that can't stay healthy. All right. Their corners, Kyler Gordon's already out. The rookie Tyreek Stevenson, who was getting torched, got hurt last week, and Terrell Smith came in and the 5th rounder and actually had some decent moments and decent plays there. But again, it's just like there's nowhere to turn here in terms of where you see some glimmer of hope, at least offensively. If Justin and company can get everything back in sync and put some points on the board, that'll be some excitement. At least there's some hope there. But defensively, there is absolutely no hope. And I feel like Matt Eberflus is that band player, the band leader on the Titanic, just sitting there playing his, continue to play his music and saying, nope, we're going to rush 4 guys and we're going to drop back in coverage. We might bring 5, maybe 6, but we do what we do. We're getting there. We're getting close.
There are people who would rather fail their way than succeed some other way. I mean, that's a real ego thing where it's like, I'm going to go down and I'm going to go down doing it the way I want to do it because I don't want to succeed doing it somebody else's way or doing it because somebody told me I needed to change. So I'm just going to keep doing it my way. And if that runs me out of town, so be it. But at least I'm true to myself, which is garbage, because if you don't allow yourself to be adaptable, then you're really not being the best version of yourself. I'm not trying to get too deep here, but that's just how that kind of works. And I would love to know when is the last time, and this is going to be rhetorical because nobody knows, when is the last time the Bears put in a good defensive performance? Like I can't remember a game where they put in a really good defensive performance.
Their last win against the Patriots.
The Patriots?
Yeah, that must have been it. That was the last time they had an okay defensive performance.
Yeah.
It was a year ago.
And that was because they had Roquan Smith on that team. And once Roquan was traded, they've been garbage since then. And the impact that he did, I mean, they at least a middle of the tier. They were kind of competitive defensively with Roquan. Once he was traded, he was gone. This team has been garbage on defense, and they continue to be garbage on defense. And lo and behold, he goes to Baltimore, who is struggling defensively, and the Ravens now are one of the better defenses in the league because of one of the reasons is because of Roquan Smith.
I asked that question rhetorically, but of course the chat room has some gems. Automatically, 1985 and then 2018. Like you're not that far off. Like we joke, but you're really not that far off. But guys, I want to end on this question because it's the one that's getting the most talk around Chicago, simply because there's nothing else to talk about. But as far as the hot seats go for some of these people in the organization, so let's start taking the temperature a little bit, and let's start with the most obvious one. Let's start with Matt Eberflus. Do we believe that he is not only on the hot seat, but it could be coaching for his life in Chicago, so to speak, coaching for his future with the Chicago Bears? Danny, I'll start with you, and then Alyssa jump in.
Yes, and yes. I think the entire coaching staff is on a hot seat. I think for me, the GM is on a hot seat because you talked about earlier, John, in terms of Buffone 55. If you are going to go ahead and wipe the slate clean, and you're going to go ahead and use these 2 high draft picks to pick a future quarterback, you're going to let this guy pick that quarterback, let this guy pick a new coaching staff to tutor that quarterback. And then if next year you have another bad year, or worst case scenario, if Poles decides to keep Eberflus, pick another quarterback, and they have a bad year next year, you wipe an entire slate clean. And now again, you have a new regime coming in, inheriting a high draft pick quarterback. You don't want, if you're going to do this, do it the right way. I think the big thing with Justin Fields is organizationally, they have failed him. They have failed him in terms of developing this kid. I mean, look at the way things have been done in other organizations. Look at the Green Bay, for example. Jordan Love looks good, guys, because, he's been groomed the right way. A case in point with the Colts, Anthony Richardson, he's got a coach, Shane Steichen, that knows how to develop quarterbacks. He was there with Justin Herbert. He was there with Jalen Hurts. And look at the game plan from the Colts' first 2 games with Anthony Richardson as a quarterback. And look at last week's game plan with Gardner Minshew. He changed game plans depending on the strengths of his quarterback. That's how you get these quarterbacks comfortable early on in their careers. You get them, some confidence, and next thing you know, you can add things slowly but surely to the game. This organization doesn't know how to develop quarterbacks. Even if you go get the first pick in the draft and you get Caleb Williams, who's to say they're not going to ruin him as well? It's just it's one of those things where it's so depressing. It's not that difficult, to be honest with you, if you just follow a blueprint that's a successful blueprint, like say the Colts, the Packers, something like that. But just to do this, mix and match and plug in here, fire this guy, bring a new guy in. But to answer your question, John, sorry, I was long-winded answer, but for me, everybody is on the hot seat. Starts with Ryan Poles, and obviously the whole entire coaching staff.
Alyssa, you believe that the Matt Eberflus needs to get to a certain threshold to save his job, or is it potentially already done?
I mean, I think he's already there. I think his seat is as hot as possible. Can I just copy paste what Danny said? I mean, that was perfectly put. I do agree about just kind of resetting everything, because we've seen this story before and it ends the same way. It's really frustrating. But with Matt Eberflus, especially, too, you look at just, he has the worst winning percentage. He's in Bears history. He's 3-17, the longest losing streak in franchise history. His team looks completely deflated at this point. We are in week 3. They do not look like they want to be out there. It's his job to get this team back and ready to go, motivate them, and take accountability. Like we see him in these press conferences where he's just like, okay, yeah, we're going to keep working. We're going to focus on the details, and then things will work itself out. Like, I'm curious to see if that's the message he's also telling his players too in the locker room. Cause I mean, that's just, it's not working. If we're not feeling it too as fans, how do you imagine those players are feeling? I mean, I just feel like at this point, his seat is super hot. I think he's one of the best odds to be the first head coach fired. I think it's just a matter of time, because the thing is, if he can like perform a miracle and turn the season around, which I have zero belief that he can do, I think it's just going to get worse. They'll be lucky if they get a couple wins this season. I mean, it's just a matter of when, right? And that would probably be at the end of the season. So, but like Danny said, I think I would just kind of strip everything down too. I mean, that we have Kevin Warren now in place, right? That is his job. We kind of talk about that too. Kevin Warren, he inherited Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus, right? In this entire thing. So with Warren now in place and he has the authority, just tear it all down, build it all up. Let's do another rebuild, right? And then you can go out, pick a quarterback, hopefully bring the right people in place. I don't know. I would like a new chapter in this story, something different, because I'm really tired of rehashing the same thing over and over and over again.
But I mean, stripping it down and redoing it is kind of the same chapter. And it's like,
that's true.
It sucks. But it's for me, it's like, I agree. Matt Eberflus is, if he has not already lost the locker room, that's amazing. So because they know how dysfunctional they are, they know how, just how bad they are, and a lot of it is on the coaching and the scheme, and maybe people being in over their head and in positions they should not be in. And when I'm not going to pretend like I said something I didn't, but last year or 2 years ago when we were going through this coaching search, I said, if they go with a defensive-minded head coach, that's fine, because unlike Matt Nagy, I just want an adult in the room that can keep the team together, that can keep everybody focused, that'll be the CEO of the team, and will be able to run that team. I'm not sure Eberflus is that. And also, I would have preferred them to bring in a more seasoned offensive coordinator who wasn't going to be learning on the job with a young quarterback either. So you bring in Luke Getsy, who's a quarterback coach who doesn't have a lot of experience running the entire offense and calling plays. And it's just like, all right, everyone's young now. First-time head coach, first-time play caller, first-time GM. And now it's just good luck with the young quarterback. And it just seemed like you would have liked somebody with a little bit of experience in that room to understand how things were working. But yeah, I think
if you want,
go. I'm listening.
How would hire? First of all, if you keep Justin Fields, the first thing I'm going to do is we all know there's going to be a divorce in Ann Arbor between Jim Harbaugh and Michigan. That's going to happen. And that's the first call.
Alyssa doesn't want to hear that.
No,
that's going to happen, guys. I'm sorry. It's going to happen. That's going to be a divorce in Ann Arbor. Jim Harbaugh could be available. And that's the first call I'd make, especially if you're keeping Justin Fields. And with his knowledge of Justin Fields, having played him at Ohio State, I think he's a guy that can come in and help Justin Fields, get him in a system that's going to be built around his strengths. Yeah, that's one guy. If you're going to strip it down, you're going to bring a whole new GM here, and you're going to bring a whole new young quarterback. The guy I'd go get is Bill O'Brien, the New England Patriots offensive coordinator right now, former head coach. I think things went bad in Houston because he had every single hat you could think of in Houston. He was a GM. He was the director of communication, all that other crap. So it was like, just give him a head coach, give him a general manager that can come in and get talent. And remember what he did with Deshaun Watson? He brought in Deshaun Watson and he started him as a rookie, and he played out this offense where it was a widespread offense, turned things around. And I think he got Deshaun Watson on the right track and built him from there. So I think Bill O'Brien, he's a guy that can control the room. He's a guy that takes no crap from nobody. You've seen him go off after Tom Brady. You see him go after everybody on the sidelines. He's got the experience with the college players, with the young players, having been with Nick Saban at Alabama. He's one of the guys I'd bring in terms of just a head coach if you're going to bring in a new quarterback to mold. And like the name that everybody talks about in terms of young quarterback is Caleb Williams. And there's a lot of questions right now. I'm talking about Caleb Williams in terms of his passion for the game, his desire to be great. Will the team follow this kid? And we talked about, remember when Jay Cutler was here, talked about the body language. He's got some real bad body language. You watch Caleb Williams at USC if things don't go right for him. So do you want to deal with that all over again? So again, you need a strong mentor, a head coach that can go ahead and design a system that's going to take that player, whether it's Fields, whether a new quarterback, and build it around him and know what he's doing. And no more first-time head coaches, no more first-time GMs. Let's get someone that's got some NFL pedigree.
So you'd be out on Ben Johnson from the Lions?
Again, he's a guy that it excites me, but he's a guy that also has only been doing it for calling plays now for 3 years now. No head coaching experience. I'd be a little hesitant because you're talking about a guy not done it before. Now I would be interested in Eric Bieniemy as a third option as well. I think Bieniemy has done well to go to Washington and make Sam Howell look like a competent quarterback for the first 3 weeks. So he's a guy that also, remember, the players were going to Ron Rivera saying, "Hey, this guy is too tough on us." You said you want a leader in the room. An adult in the room. I think Eric Bieniemy would go ahead and do that. Now, the other question with Eric Bieniemy is who is going to be his defensive coordinator and so on and so forth. So it's a lot of questions to be answered. But I think I'd go Harbaugh, O'Brien, and Bieniemy. Those are my three guys right now.
For me, my feeling is if they decide to get rid of Eberflus, and let's just say Poles stays, just for the sake of this conversation, they allow Poles to pick the next head coach. I just think that when that new head coach comes in and they see that they might have 2 top 10 picks, that coach is going to be like, I want to pick my quarterback. I want to pick my guy. And so for me, I just feel like if Eberflus goes, that also kind of seals the deal for Justin Fields. Because I think if you bring in a new regime, they're not going to have to, they don't want to, with that kind of draft capital, they're not going to say, all right, let's let him play out, because they got to make a decision of whether or not they want his 5th-year option after this year as well. So if a new regime comes in and says, well, we don't know, we're not going to give this guy his 5th-year option, and that really means we only have him for a year, and if he plays, then you kind of find yourself in that weird, like, Daniel Jones territory where the Giants found themselves in last year. So where they ended up paying him $40 million off of a pretty okay season, but it doesn't really seem like he's ever going to be the guy. So I just feel like if you're a head coach, you want a quarterback that you can kind of mold from the very start. Not to mention you're paying him nothing rather than giving Fields an extension or picking up that 5th-year option. You give you a little more play in the cap. And so I just feel like if this coaching staff goes, that's probably the end of Justin Fields in Chicago too. I don't
totally agree with you, John. I think that would happen, but I don't totally agree because it depends on who the coach is, how he feels about Justin Fields, and also if you don't pick up a 5th-year option, that's fine. But you bring him in and you bring in if you want your rookie to go draft your rookie, that's fine. You can bring him in too and let him compete. Because worst case scenario, if this offense comes in, this new coach, and then the light turns on, and now Justin Fields is showing that progress we were talking about this year. And I have 2 potential quarterbacks. Why can't you just trade one of them? So that's the thing, is like, why would you just give up an asset like that and just get rid of him just because you brought a new coach? Now, unless the coach says, you know what, I do not want Justin Fields. I scouted him at Ohio State. I can't work with him. Different story. But also, I wouldn't put that on a new coach either. I wouldn't say, hey, I'm only looking for a coach that is going to want to work with Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. No, I'm going to get anybody who wants to come coach his team. Give me your thoughts on Justin Fields. What do you think about it? And he says, no, I can work with him. Nope, I can't work with him. Then you go from there, but you make your decision based off of who is the best candidate for the job, not if he's going to accept this player or that player.
No, I completely agree with that. I feel like sometimes, if you draft a quarterback in the top 10 and then you keep Fields, then you're creating a lot of, there's going to be a competition there, but you got it the short. That means you're going to start Fields, because there's no way you're going to start the rookie ahead of Fields, because then that means you can always bring the rookie in. You can't bench the rookie and bring in the older guy.
Let the best man win. Competition.
I get that. It's just, I think that you have such a short leash. Then we saw what happened with Trubisky and Nick Foles. Now Nick Foles wasn't a high potency rookie that year, but then you got, as soon as something goes bad, because we've had 3 years of Justin Fields, the second he throws a pick or gets sacked, there's going to be boo birds calling for that rookie to be out. And so, I'm not sure. I don't know if that coach wants to deal with that dynamic. But like you said, it depends on who they bring in, but it can't be because they want to or don't want to. It just has to be who actually is going to run a system
That's why it's got to be someone who's got head coaching experience, someone who has a strong, belief in their system, and someone who's, a strong-willed person. So like a Harbaugh, Bill O'Brien, I think Eric Bieniemy. I don't think those three guys that I just rattled off, and there's more that I haven't even thought about right now, but I don't think those three guys are gonna succumb to the pressure of the fans or the Boo Birds or anything like that. If they believe in Justin and they feel like he has a potential to go ahead and develop in their system. So we'll see what happens. I just hope the worst case scenario is if the Bears teams wins 5 games by the end of the season, and then there's like, oh, hey, it was improvement. We improved by 2 games, and we're going to keep everybody back. So,
oh god,
we've seen
rehashing the same thing.
Yeah, we've seen that whenever they decided to bring back Nagy and Pace for that one last, it was like almost like a lame duck year. You knew exactly what was going to happen. They were going to underperform, and and basically they pushed off the inevitable 1 year, and they left everybody in cap hell, not really cap hell, but like there are a lot of contracts on the books that they had to strip off after that. But
what was the word they kept using? Continuity? Is that what they're
continuity and everything? There was a committee, there was continuity, there was everything was on the table.
Oh no, collaboration.
Collaboration. That's what it was.
Collaboration.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Collaboration.
That was the C word I was thinking about.
Yeah.
We have great collaboration. We haven't won. We have no quarterback. Blah blah blah. But we have great collaboration.
We're collaborating.
Guys, the culture is great. The Bears have a culture that other teams are really envious of. Don't you remember that? That was that it wasn't a winning culture, but it was the culture that everyone wanted. But Alyssa, do you think if they do go to a new head coach, are you sold that this coach has to have an offensive background, or are you okay with another defensive hire? It seems like we keep flopping back and forth with this.
I mean, yeah, we do. I mean, you would like. I mean, I guess it depends. But I mean, I think I would want an offensive-minded head coach. But like Danny was mentioning too, at least this time around when you're going through the hiring process, because when they had Trubisky and when he was kind of rolling over, and when they had Fields rolling over to a new coaching staff, it's kind of like, come in here and tell me like how are you going to make Trubisky better? How are you going to make Fields better? Like, right. But you have 2 first-round picks. You have that option where you could go in and pick your own quarterback. So you're not necessarily going to be tied to that. But I mean, I just want the best guy for the job. And like Danny was saying, getting someone experienced in there. Or I do like Eric Bieniemy as well. So, I mean, I can't believe we're having this conversation too. But yeah, it's crazy. I probably would want an offensive-minded head coach because, I mean, we're in a quarterback-driven league now at this point. And depending on if it is Fields, you need someone who's going to be able to work with him and build a system around him. And then also keep that continuity in case, not that we expect this to happen, but if the offense takes off and your offensive coordinator leaves, then it's another new offense, be it whether it's Fields or another quarterback that they bring in. But I think I know we keep flip-flopping back and forth, but because of the importance of the quarterback position and getting that right, I would prefer an offensive-minded head coach, but I'm not going to say, yes, I just need one. Like, because the Bears is like, okay, no, we failed if they fire Eberflus. Okay, we failed with a defensive-minded head coach. Let's go back to offense. Like, that's probably where they're going to be leaning. So I just want the best guy for the job. Get this team back on a winning track.
And if you look at it, and I'm going off the top of my head and trying to do this like on the fly here, but if you look at all the playoff teams last year, it's the numbers are so slated. Those are all offensive-minded head coaches. I mean, without Pete Carroll, John Harbaugh with the Ravens, and I'm
Sean McDermott from the Bills.
Todd Bowles, defensive coordinator. He was the Bucs were in the playoffs last year as well.
Did they make the? Oh yeah. They had a bad record and made it. So, but
Tom Brady's last year. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, but if you look at like all of the team, not even last year, but the year before that and the year before that, the trend is very much that offensive-minded head coaches get into the playoffs, and because they usually can develop the quarterback, and they usually have an offensive system that can score points and win shootouts, which is what you have to do in today's NFL. So we'll see. I mean, I can't, honest to God, guys, I can't believe we're talking about this before the 4th game. This kind of got real surreal for me real quick. Like, oh my God. They're 0-3, not 0-13 yet. So it's
this should be a week 15, week 16 conversation, not a week 3 conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe even like week 13 or 12, but like for the Bears, but like 4.
Yeah, we're using all of our good material. It's a long season, guys. We're gonna run out of stuff to talk about. So
we'll rehash it.
I want this losing streak to continue. Is that sick?
Well,
I thought the same thing, Danny.
It's the only thing we have going for us is this losing streak. It's the only thing we got.
But because then think about it too. If they go out there and they beat the winless Broncos, like what what is that really doing?
Oh, it's you end
the losing streak.
That's
but
what they needed
what
to
do you
turn
talk
the
about?
season around, Alyssa. That was the moment they knew that they were going to the playoffs.
One win, right? They were talking about one win. That's all they need. Or comparing them to the Lions from last year. The Lions were in those games last year when they were 1-6. Like the Bears were not.
Oh God, no! That's night and day. That's night and day. But
Yeah.
it would be nice as a Bears fan to watch the Bears win once. I mean,
I know that's true. I'll take the Washington game since you're going to it.
Oh boy, yeah.
That's gonna be a rough game. That's gonna be a rough game. That defense on a short week. It might be a replay of last year's debacle.
Oh God, yeah. What they decided to run that back because it was so good last year. Oh yeah, let's do that.
You decided
again.
to buy tickets for it though.
Oh yeah, well, I live very close to DC, and I'm like, I was thinking maybe the Bears are 2-1 at this point. Maybe things are working. I can go see the Bears and not have to travel so far. And now I got to drive like almost 2 hours to watch a possibly winless.
Can we sell them on maybe a Commanders?
For what?
Fan maybe a Commanders fan would want to go.
What are you gonna give me for those tickets? What?
How much would you Sam wagon and watch Mr. Sam Howell?
Yeah. Watch Sam Howell play the Bears on a Thursday night. What do you think that I'm gonna get for that? I'm gonna get a bag of peanuts for it.
Exactly.
The NFL scriptwriters got real lazy this season. Just
Yeah.
rehash the same thing.
Yeah, but the actual thing is the losing streak continues, but Justin and the offense gets better, but the defense can't stop anybody, so they continue losing. And then now we have positive answers about Justin and the offense, but we know the defense sucks, the coaching staff sucks, they're all gone, and that's what I'm kind of cheering for, guys.
Look, Danny, you gave us some optimism. You found it.
That's what I'm cheering for.
Somehow.
Optimism through negativity. Isn't
Yeah,
that
right now,
works.
the organization is a laughing stock of the NFL. Every major network, whether it's ESPN, FS1, NFL Network, they are laughing at the Bears. I mean, that's got to be this is a proud, founding, NFL founding franchise, and they are a laughing stock. I mean, that's shit. That's shameful. I mean, as a Bears fan, it hurts, but also I can't help but to laugh with them. It's
Thank you. Now we have a Taylor Swift cut in that we're doing now. This is going on.
You don't know Aldo was a Swiftie?
I believe that.
Hello, Swiftie.
I did not sign off on that, Aldo. I believe I have creative control over this show. So, but before we get cut in with any more of this T Swift stuff, let's just wrap this thing up. Alyssa, tell us what's happening over at Bears Wire and what fans can expect the next week.
Well, you cannot expect any Taylor Swift related content, but every day we are keeping Bears fans informed with all the latest news and analysis leading up to and after Sunday's game against the Broncos. Hopefully we'll have something positive to write about, at least in terms of Justin Fields and the offense. We're going to break down the action, share our immediate reactions, share our reactions, and preview a quick turnaround on Thursday Night Football where John's going to have a front row seat.
Huzzah! Aldo, quit putting up Taylor Swift pictures. And if you're listening to the podcast version, I'm sure this is really enthralling conversation. But yes, we're getting a lot of Taylor Swift cut-ins, which is it kind of emulates what the Fox broadcast had to do because they couldn't talk about the game, so they had to just keep cutting to Taylor Swift in the stands. But Danny, what tape have you studied recently? People are going to be asking for mock drafts. So what do you got?
Yeah, I've started picking up the draft stuff because I know everyone's going to be asking questions about that. But I've been focusing mainly on the offensive line, like Joe Alt from Notre Dame, for example, Kingsley Sumatai from BYU, big offensive tackles, Jared Verse, the defensive end from FSU, Braylon Trice, the defensive end from Washington. So I'm looking at offensive, defensive lines. That's what I've been focusing on. But Aldo, in between his Taylor Swift cuts, has directed me to start looking at quarterbacks. So I'm going to start scouting some quarterbacks now because the boss man has told me to scout quarterbacks.
That's how it works around here.
We're already there. Week 4.
Yeah, it really, really are. And don't forget to join Danny, me, and our new analyst, Coach T, on Bear Football, our After the Game show. The three of us will share our immediate reactions, carry Coach Eberflus and Justin Fields' press conferences, and break down whatever key plays might have happened in the game. But that will do it for us tonight. For Alyssa Barbieri and Danny Shimon, I'm John Buffone. We'll see you next week right here on Buffone 55. Try to enjoy the game, everybody. We'll see you next time.